camera's moving. Hello. Before we begin our class today, this is the voice from heavens, I guess, in distant past. Just wanted to mention that it is Rosh Chodesh Shvat. It's Aleph Shvat today, and therefore on Gimel Shvat, my dad pointed out, was the yard site that he would hold for his family. So, just want to point that out for our lesson today. And we should learn Leilu Nishmatehem, that my father should be in Shamayim, and in the schut of us learning his Torah on this auspicious Rosh Chodesh and close to their yard site, that the Neshama should have an Aliyah. They should all have nachas in Shamayim from the lichtig, that thine eigens is the lichtig in the Heilige Torah. Right? And we also, one of our regulars and to whom we owe much, Alan Robbins, is not well today, so we're also going to learn that he should have a fush name Mahera. Take it away, Rabbi Doctor.
Okay, so we're continuing the section on Noach. We're on page 4 of the section on Noach, and it's actually the first time we're this is the first time we're encountering the combination of Darga Tzavir. So Darga has a sound of sort of going down steps, going down levels. And if you'll look at the note, maybe we're going to turn back to the introduction, page LXV, and Darga is number 16 there. Looks sort of like a backwards Z. It's underneath it comes underneath the word, and again the sound goes down by levels. Darga, and it's usually followed by either Tavir, the note that's after it, Tavir, or by Munach Ravi'i. Darga, Munach Ravi'i. So with Darga we see that it's going down in steps. This is something that is going to introduce a concept that's going to be completed by the next word or phrase that comes after it. We note that it goes down in stages, and it emphasizes a main objective, and then it's going to what it's going to emphasize is going to continue into the next word or phrase that comes after it. So we're turning back to page 4 of the Noach section. Vayar, and he noticed, number 1, God saw the dangerous course of events, and he noticed grave consequences from the rapid advancement of crime as indicated by the shape of the reading mark. So again, in the last pasuk we had said that the land had filled with sort of petty crime and violence, and God watched as it went down level by level by level. So the noticing is noticing the decline, and you hear the decline in the note. You hear the fact that society is going down, again, step by step by step. So Vayar, Elohim, God above. Number 2, God above, who views results ahead of causes, because became concerned about the goal of his creations, which were part of his masterwork. So again, we notice that this Tavir is going to be connected to the Darga that comes before it, and it's going to sort of be the main focus of the thought of what the Darga was introducing. So the Darga is noticing that God above is noticing something. He's noticing a stepwise decline. God sees the results as so he's saying here ahead of causes. Basically, he's seeing that from his ability to have perspective, from Elohim, from God above, God who is a judge, he can see that this is something that he is going to need to act upon in his capacity as Elohim, as the God of justice.
So he already knows. I mean, if God is God, he knows that they're not going to suddenly see their ways and change.
He knows that he's going to have to shift into the mode of Elohim. He's going to need to have to shift into the mode of being a judge here, rather than having the possibility of introducing mercy here, because it's going down step by step by step.
And then it will continue to go down.
And it's going to continue to go down. There's no possibility of introducing mercy here.
Is there a reciprocal to this particular trope, like going up?
Yes, there is a pazer, which goes up and up and up.
And when would we, or we'll get
Well,
to that?
we'll get to
Okay.
one, and we'll talk about that, and maybe when we get to the first one, we'll try and contrast it with what we did with the verga.
Okay.
Number 3, et haaretz, with the earth. The man had undertaken a plan to alter the original function and shapes of the 6 days creations together with the earth, and became a sole master of its new order instead of God, as referred backwards by the directional shape of the reading mark. So you'll notice that this is a tipcha. So a tipcha is a note that is a gentle curve which always looks back or gathers something from before it. So what he's telling us is the earth, the land, that man had taken the control of the land, which he was offered. He was offered umorachem v'chitchem yeh, that your mastery will be over the earth and all of its creatures. But he had taken that as his supreme duty, rather than acknowledging that he had to pay some obeisance to what God had told him to do as well. So with the earth, at the Aretz, looking backwards, he's saying that man had taken his level of mastery all the way back to, again, 6 days of creation, and we refer to Elohim there as well. So we've got both the backwards reference from the Tipcha and the backwards reference from the particular name of God that's used in the sentence before, that tell us that this is looking back to the original days of creation, not just talking about the land at that point, but introducing yet a new element because of the reading mark, because of the ta'am. Vihine, number 4, and readily. That kind of mentality was appealing to the people, having attracted many followers. Readily it spread throughout the communities of the land, as stressed by the shape of the reading mark. So again, this is a munach. We remember that the munach has sort of a solid line followed by a forward-going line. So this is in some way going to separate it from things that are before it, and move on to a new concept or a new reality or a new something after it. So, and readily, the kind of mentality was appealing to people, having attracted many followers. So the new way of thought, the way of thought that made man the master of everything and sort of tried to take God out of the equation, was what people were going to try to spread and perpetuate from here on in, because they're separating out from the reality that was before and moving on with a new reality, as we see with the Munach. Nishchata, it was deteriorated. Number 5, along with the man, his surroundings, even the earth and all its features, were involved. It was deteriorated, and there was no hope for any improvement or turn of events, as shown by the stabilizing shape of the reading mark. So, et nachta, we'll remember, is the end of the first phrase in each two-phrase sentence, and it has a solid base with something looking up from where it is. So it tells us of something that is going to have stability, something that is going to have a sense of permanence to it, and possibly a higher purpose going from there up. So when we say that the land had deteriorated and God had noticed this, it wasn't that just that it had deteriorated with a possibility of getting better again afterwards, but the fact that the nishchata has the etnachta on it has told us that it is stabilized at this level and wasn't likely to get better again, wasn't likely to improve beyond where it was. So the note emphasizes the fact that not only was there deterioration, but the deterioration had become the new normal, or had become the way that the situation had stabilized into, and wasn't going to get back to where it was before. Ki hishchit, number 6, because had spoiled. And again, you notice that the English translation looks a little bit odd. This is a 2-word phrase with only one reading mark, and that's why the 2-word phrase is translated together. And each word is translated as if it is standing alone, and that is the hallmark of this perush, that each word, especially if it has a makaf, if it has something that says that you have to make sure that you're pronouncing that word separately. So if you look under the word ki, you notice that there's a straight line going down under it. So that just tells you that there is an emphasis to make sure that the word ki and hishchit are separate from each other. A chirik, the dot that's under a word that has the e sound, has 2 possibilities. It can be a short e sound without being followed by a yud after it, or it can be a long e sound with the chirik, the dot underneath the word, and the yud on the word out, and the yud following it actually is part of that chirik, is part of that vowel sound that's underneath. Or you can have a yud that's after it that is a consonant that sounds by itself. So that would be e, because the yud is actually another consonant, not part of the vowel sound. The makaf, the straight line that you see under the ki there, is telling you that this is a long chirik, that this yud belongs to the dot underneath the kaf, and it gets the emphasis. It makes it a longer sound,
So you
not
say
perceptibly longer, not pronounceably longer, but it's sort of the equivalent in English of, you'll have sometimes a word that has 2 L's in the middle or 2 T's in the middle. Doesn't really change the sound, but it tells you that it's a more pronounced consonant.
I always wondered why they have sometimes double. Okay.
So that it's sort of the equivalent. It's one way that Hebrew makes an equivalent of that.
So how would you say it? So you wouldn't say it any
So
different.
you wouldn't say it any differently.
No, same question.
So you wouldn't say it any differently, but it's telling you that there could have been another possibility. If the yud did not belong to the chirik, then it would be pronounced differently. It would be ki,
It would be.
because the yud would have the equivalent of a shva under it. So ki. So normally it's ki, but if the yud was not part of the chirik, not part of the dot that's underneath the kaf, then the yud would be a consonant that's standing by itself, a yud that stands by itself. If
Yeah.
you don't see a vowel underneath a word, it automatically has a shva. It has the 2 dots underneath it. So if it didn't belong to the chirik before, instead of ki, which is the way it is pronounced like this, it would be pronounced ki.
Can you give an
The
example,
yid-
Jeff, of that?
Yeah.
Hayata.
How do you tell? Oh, it's right.
Right, instead of
Hi-
hayta.
Hayta, right. Hayata. Perfect. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
Huh.
And we will see later on that because of the rules of reading, when you have notes that either attach to each other or separate from each other, we will sometimes see words like hayata pronounced with a shvana or with a shvana. Sometimes it's
that's right.
hayta,
Right.
and sometimes it's hayata.
Sorry, my
Again,
question-
depending on which syllable gets the accent.
Can you give an example with a chirik? Can you think of one like that?
Ki yimei, like the days of ki yimei.
Kime or very nice. Okay.
You were saying here to emphasize that the 2 words are
That's
separate.
no, it's that the yud, the 2 consonants in the
2
first word
consonants are separate.
are not separate,
Are-
are in fact joined.
But
That's a long vowel sound rather than 2 consonants. So you've actually got 1 consonant and 1 vowel, and the yud is part of the vowel. So again, number 6, ki hishchit, because had spoiled. And this has another darga. So again, what we saw from the beginning is this is going to be something that is going in stages. Visible signs or hidden results of degenerations had contributed to a general deterioration of purebred species because was spoiled its original character. So what we're saying here is that we're seeing stepwise degeneration, and with a dargah, we always know that the dargah is going to give emphasis, and the end of the concept is going to be with the phrase that comes after it. So that's why he's already getting into each flesh, kol basar. That's why he's talking about that this is specifically referring to species. So again, we learned with the first dargah that vayar has to be intimately connected to the concept of Elokim. So ki hishchit has to be connected to kol basar. There's a chief that's going to lead into the resting note that comes after, the resting ta'am that comes after it. So that's why he's introducing the concept of what the next word is into his definition of ki hishchit, because the dargah leads us into the tavir. Number 7, kol basar, each flesh. The crossing sex relations between various species had affected each flesh, producing monstrous features as expressed by the shape of the reading one. So again, tavir is going to complete the dargah that's before it. So the concept of being spoiled is going to have to go into the basar, into the flesh. So literally, the features of each species is going to have some characteristic of destruction or as he's saying, spoilage here. We're going to go back to the introduction and again see what he says about tavir. So we're on LXV, number 17. Tavir is a word that's going to have a minor pause after it. It's going to be something that is going to emphasize the concept of that word, so he calls it a low-range king for stability and security. Why? Because you're going to focus on that word, you're going to pause for a second after it, and whatever's before it is going to be there to emphasize it. A merchat tavir or a dargat tavir, you're always going to end up on the tavir, and you're going to pause there before you go on to what's after it. He is composed of notes, so if we look at the actual shape of the note, we notice that there's the mercha shape, there's that sort of gentle forward sloping curve with a dot on the inside of it. So he's composed of an outside protective shell and of a containing essence in the center. So he's not really reading any of the features of munach here. He's actually looking more at the whole shape in and of itself, is that you've got something protecting an inner concept or something that's within it. So again, when we look at the idea of ki hishchit kol basar, that each flesh, he's saying that this is something that's internal, that the destruction is not something that they're doing outside of themselves, but rather it's something that they're actually doing to themselves. It's an internal feature. And you have this outer shell with something on the inside, and the hashchata, the destruction, is that not that they're going out and chopping down trees, it's that they're actually trying to change trees. They're trying to change different animals into crossbreeds. They're trying to change the concept of what a man is, what land is, and so on, by interbreeding, by taking it and taking it out of its essence.
Oh, I'm having a mental block right now. The word we use now,
Genetic
genetic
engineering.
It's sort of the tree of genetic engineering. But
we
we
won't
try
go
to
into
do
it.
it. We think we're doing it for good, but they were doing it.
There are very long lectures on what is allowed and what isn't allowed. and that's something that you should speak to a competent halachic authority about. And there are some things we're allowed to do. All right, so we're going to go on. So
sorry, not to be before, but I think it's one thing to say we're going to try to improve fruits and vegetables to make them healthier, safer, more sustaining versus.
Oh, that's what I said. I said we now, with a lot of it, think we're doing it for beneficial. There are people who will say it isn't because you're ruining the natural genetics. But you're right. We try to do it to improve things. Whereas back then, God saw it as, well, you're destroying what I've created.
But I think the difference is it's about crossbreeding of the desire of the animals itself came out of whack. The story of Adam and Eve and the snake, that a snake would sexually covet a woman, and then she would find that appealing. Right away tips you off the fact that something's a little bit awry at this point.
Okay, so we're going to go on. He makes a side note here. We have a question?
Yeah, sir. Just in that bipartite shape of the external shell hiding the internal essence. So which is the part that was perverted? Is it the outside shell with the normal
neshama? No, he's saying kol basar. He's saying that not only are the creatures doing things that are perverse, but they're specifically the way that they're focusing their destructive energy is on the actual nature of their own being. Kol basar, on their own flesh. So they're trying to change the nature of what they are.
So basar doesn't refer to the external flesh. It refers to their species, their
essence.
Their essence.
And again, that's he's trying. Your father's trying to bring out that concept by the actual shape of a tevir. That they're looking inwards inside of themselves to make that change.
I mean, is basar also like organs? Is that
the physical?
I mean, I understand what you're saying.
It's not. Okay. So it's not so much the gross description of. So they weren't trying to grow extra organs, or to change their organs. They were trying to create mixtures that were not originally intended.
But you say they being the humans or the animals as well?
Both.
Because
both.
With the animals, can there be a fault there? Or did we not establish that the animals were driven by instinct? They didn't have, as opposed to man who has the capacity to. So then you get into asking, well, is that an evil thing, a good thing, a bad? If it's instinct or.
There is a concept of Vayar Elokim Ki Tov, that God saw that this was good, this was the way that it was intended, this is something that is productive and is going to lead to something that is useful and worth maintaining afterwards. And we have here sort of the opposite process going on, that things are specifically being changed just to show mastery of man or of other species over them, and that would always would have a tendency to lead to something that continues to spiral, to get worse and worse and worse.
So God could be also saying that, okay, the animals are not evil or bad, but this isn't going to work out. This is not the direction it should be going. Because the animals don't really have the capacity for evil or bad. It's innate.
I mean, that's not discussed here per se, other than the concept that it's kol basar, that it's not only people, it's also the animals that are doing this.
Right. No, and I was
And it's not,
exactly
it's not,
recognizing the
it's not
distinction
necessarily,
between man
it's not
and-
necessarily assigning blame, but it's assigning the fact that God
This is good.
needs to shift into Elohim, needs
Yeah,
to shift
okay.
into the mode of judgment, because nishchata, it's stabilized in this
Okay.
in this paradigm of just being something that isn't going to be self-sustaining or isn't worth sustaining.
Okay.
Could the dinosaurs have been any sort of offspring of this perversion that's within nature? Is that evidence for that? Is that a possibility?
Is it discussed as a possibility? I mean, certainly we have the concept of there being species before and species afterward, and the question is, are any species lost? Noah is told to take two of every species, so it
Would be
it probably would be unlikely to enter in here.
Yeah, that's right. It would have been from earlier.
So we have the concept of Vayivra Elokim et Taninim Hagdalim. God created the giant sea monsters, but and again those specifically disappear and don't show up again and don't make their way onto the ark.
Right.
So certainly we have species that are created that were there before. Midrash tells us that some version of them will be there at Yemot HaMashiach, so, and you know they'll be preserved somehow for that period of time. So that's if you were thinking of where a Torah concept of a dinosaur would fit in, it has to fit in more with that
Right.
than with the flood story.
Right.
Or would it be from a previous world, one of the previous incarnations of the world?
No, because we have no evidence or midrashim that thing from any of those previous incarnations of the of worlds made it into our world.
You may have mentioned this and I missed it or something. Why is it here with the equal sign? Sometimes you have between, like, because equals had, hyphen, spoiled. Why is there
So
distinction?
what he's trying to tell you is, you'll have sometimes if you look at the right side at the Hebrew, look at number 3, and look at number 6, and look at number 7. So what you've got is you've got 2 word phrases that only have one reading mark underneath them. Et haaretz, ki hishchit, kol basar, and then number 8 also, al et darko, and number 9, al haaretz. So you've got a large number of examples of this. So he's trying to give you a syntax of saying that you've got 2 different words. He's separating those 2 words out with an equal sign, and sometimes a word will need more than one word in English to translate it. So, for instance, haaretz, the ha stands for the word the, and aretz stands for the word earth. So the single dash that's in between the earth is telling you that that second word in Hebrew, haaretz, translates into 2 English words, the earth. And that's why he's got a single dash there. And he's using the double dash to separate out the et, which he defines here as with, which he's always defined as with, by the way.
Which is graphically 2 words, as opposed to haaretz, which is graphically only 1 word.
Yes. So, Corinne, you got it? Or not?
No, that last
So,
part, say that again.
what-
I'm not,
So
my Hebrew is...
that's okay.
That's okay.
So if you're translating from one language to another, sometimes it will take more than one word to
Right.
express what something is said.
Right.
And when he's doing that, he will separate that with single dashes.
Okay.
And by the way, if the reading mark has more than one word that it's inclusive of, then he will separate each of those words with that equal sign,
Equal
with a
sign.
double mark. So just that's the syntax of
Okay,
the.
okay. Got that.
I think what's confusing is sometimes we associate obviously the equal sign for math as being this.
This is the same
equivalent
as-
to this,
yeah,
but that's
yeah.
not the way he's using it.
Right,
He's
no,
using
no,
the
I-
2
He's
lines
just using it
as
as
opposed to 1 line.
as a different type of a dash.
Right,
Exactly,
okay.
exactly.
As opposed to just the space.
Mhm. Okay, so we're after 7. He makes a side note here as well. The Gemara deduces, Rav Yochanan Sanhedrin, that cattle had sex relations with beasts, beasts with cattle, and man with all of them. So again, that's them spoiling their flesh. So et darko, number 8, with its way. This has a tipcha. So remember, a tipcha is something that's going to gather concepts from before, and it's going to have a very minor brief pause after it. With its way.